Hello, I'm back. It's been a little bit, and today we're going to be talking about Firewatch. A little history on Firewatch. About a year ago, bought the game thinking I'm going to make a cool little video on it, and I proceeded to not like the game at all and scrap the entire idea of making a video on Firewatch. About a year later, which is now, I thought to myself, man, why not just make a video hating on Firewatch and complaining about every little thing? And so I thought, let's go do that. And playing through the game 2 more times for footage and refreshing, I realized something happened. Something about the game this time around made me somewhat fall in love with it, even if I didn't want to. And so we're going to talk about that today. Buckle on in. Day 0 starts with less of the general gameplay loop you'll see later on and more of a slideshow presentation of Henry's backstory and where you start off, or where he is at mentally when you start off Firewatch proper. The backstory is pretty simple, I'll throw it out right now. Henry meets this woman named Julia, they fall in love, they have a great life together, and eventually Julia gets early onset dementia. And the backstory is pretty much the same no matter what you pick, but the only one that I think kind of matters is where you realize Julia cannot take care of herself, so you can either put her in a home or take care of her yourself. And no matter which one you do, it ends up with essentially Julia staying in the home and she just not recognize you to the point where you don't even want to go because it's so disheartening, or Julia's family coming and seeing this house that's not being taken care of, it's not good, and they take Julia away. Either way, you're at this point where you're alone and you see an ad for a Firewatch position and you take it. And that's pretty much Day 0's entire story. You meet this character named Delilah, who's kind of your tutorial slash main best friend through the entire summer, and we'll talk about her more later, but that's pretty much the entire gist of Day 0. But I kind of want to talk about how I felt on Day 0. When I first played this game, in my head, I was thinking this is going to be a great fire lookout experience, and then I get hit with Day 0, and I realize that this isn't my story. This is Henry's story that I am experiencing. Personally, I just didn't like the idea of someone abandoning their wife or husband or whatever because of their mental illness. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want to go into Firewatch knowing that I abandoned my wife. But me personally, the person speaking, I've never experienced someone with dementia or a mental illness where it degrades their brain, where they're not the same person you knew. Sit here and condemn this fictional character over something that isn't objectively right or wrong. That was pretty heavy. Anyway, let's have some fun. Day 1 is the proper introduction to Firewatch, where you wake up, you talk with Delilah a little bit, she gives you some information about your room and some random stuff, and then suddenly you see some fireworks. And this is pretty much the call to action, I would say, for Day 1, where Delilah tells you to go to this cache box and get some equipment to climb down the hill to get to where the fireworks are coming from. Fun fact, I really like the cache boxes, mainly because they store random stuff from previous Firewatch people or park rangers. And also, like, the only really main thing you can get from these are map details, which is so cool because you have a map in this game, and as you go through, Henry will add like little details and stuff from his experience, like we'll get to in 2 seconds. And I just really enjoy it. Aside from that, the cache boxes aren't really important, but I wanted to mention it because, yeah. Continuing on, we have to climb down this hill, and halfway through, our gear breaks because Henry has a dumpy. At this point, it's really cool because Henry will complain to Delilah about how he fell, and Delilah is like, oh, well, this hill doesn't have a name, and whichever one you pick from the options, he will, like, write down on his map. And I just adore that because it's like, you can do the shitty boss tries to get me killed on my first day or whatever, and he writes the whole thing. And moving on, we get to this campsite, which is just beautiful. Like, the way they set this up is just, sometimes I just kind of sit back in my chair and look at this game and go, damn. But unfortunately, this camp is not as beautiful as it could be because there's alcohol spewed around, fireworks, clothing, fires. It's like the worst thing ever. Anyway, so we see that no one's there, so we have to keep going down a little more because I think we hear music. Walking down the path, we see underwear. Women's underwear just strewn around. I don't know if I'm just like an anxious person, but I can't just throw my bra just on a tree. Like, to be fair, they're drunk, but like, I don't know. There's some like common decency I have to have for myself. as we go out there, and there's two teens just chilling at the lake, listening to music. They're just kind of dancing. Like if you look at them, they're just kind of swaying and stuff. But yelling at them to stop, they just start insulting you. They're like, "You pervert! I bet you wanted to find us," and all this stuff. And it's just like you really can't do anything against them. This just like is such a customer service thing to happen, where it's like you just have to do your job and then they get mad at you about it. Like oh my goodness, it's great. Because our climbing gear is broken, we gotta take an alternate route home, and on the way back we see a random person and he has a flashlight looking at us. And when you tell Delilah, she's like, "Dude, it's like a public campground, of course there's gonna be people around." Continuing on back to our lookout, we see that our typewriter is on the ground and a window is broken. Dun dun dun. So scary. And yeah, that is day one. We'll talk a little more about this stuff later, but yeah, day one. Day two begins with Delilah telling Henry that the phones are down and we need to go check our phone lines to see if it's in our area or it's in other people's areas. So let's get to hiking. And on the way, something weird happens where Delilah's like, "Oh, I gotta go talk to someone real quick," and then doesn't mute or doesn't change the channel. I don't really know what happens. I'm not technically knowledgeable about anything, but all we know is Delilah says stuff like, "He doesn't know," or "He hasn't subscribed." And the really funny part is if you confront her, then she's like, "Why would you do that?" and then blocks you for 5 minutes. It's like if you're in a Discord server and you posted a meme in general. The mod's like, "All right, buddy, you're in timeout." Anyway, checking our phone lines, we see that they are down. But that's not the scary part. It's been cut. But something even worse. The underwear from the previous day is right there with a face of, I guess, Henry and looking all mean and stuff. But can we just like think about this real quick? Who in their right mind's thinking, "Yeah, we gotta draw on our underwear this mean little image"? Did they not have a notebook? To be fair, they're drunk, so I don't think they're really thinking at all, but sometimes I'd like to ask questions that maybe don't ever have answers. Understandably, Henry and Delilah are not happy, to the point where they want to get back at them and scare the shit out of those teenage girls. So the remainder of the day just follows Henry tracking down the girls' camp and then finding that it's been destroyed. It's been torn up. It's been synonyms and stuff. And they leave a note being like, "Hey, you won. We're leaving. We're going to the police because this is creepy." And Henry just tells Delilah, and they're thinking, "Oh, it's probably a bear," when it might be. We don't know. And day two ends there. And that is the beginning of Firewatch. At this point, jumping into the mid-game montage, as the developers put it. But I wanted to have a quick just recap opinions on day 1 and 2. I love it. Day 1 and day 2 does such a good job at setting up the general gameplay loop of Firewatch. It gives you some interesting interactions with the teenage girls and also sets up this mystery about this guy that was looking at you and your lookout being destroyed, and then the teenage girls' camp also being destroyed. It's a really good setup for this background conspiracy. And now it's time to head on to... We are on the mid-game montage, MGM. So we'll be hopping through these days pretty quick because it tries to cover a lot of time. So day 3 is mainly Henry and Delilah talking, while Henry is grabbing some boards just to repair his lookout. And all it really does is show the chemistry between the two. There's not much else going on, which I think is perfectly fine. Day 9, Henry is just eating dinner, and Delilah gives us a call saying that, "Hey man, remember those teen girls that ratioed you? Yeah, they're missing." My Henry responds with, "Well, if the police need to speak to me, just have them come over." And Delilah is kind of antsy, quote unquote, I guess, about it. And she is very much not wanting to talk to the police. Day 15. Day 15 is really funny because the first time I played through the game, I thought it was Delilah flirting with Henry. And then my second playthrough, I thought it was Delilah flirting with Henry, but pretending to be Julia. And then my third playthrough, I realized it was just Henry dreaming of talking to Julia. And the only reason why I know that is because there's a developer commentary talking about it. Day 33 is pretty fun. It's just Henry goes to pick up some supplies. But the one part I do want to mention is Henry and Delilah are talking, and Henry opens up some about Julia and how he shouldn't be there. And Delilah says, "Her family is taking care of her. You are taking care of you." And this line, to me, really puts in perspective the strain on Henry. Because when I talked about the backstory earlier, I was really talking about how I wouldn't abandon my wife or whatever. But could I really blame them? Because working with someone that's dealing with a mental illness where they're constantly forgetting you, they can't take care of themselves, and you knew them beforehand, must be devastating. And in some ways, Henry going out and becoming a Firewatch lookout probably was good for him. Getting a breath of fresh air. And this, for me, is what really cements Henry as a human. He isn't this superhero who is gonna save the day. He's a regular Joe who's just trying to make it through his life and got dealt a bad hand. Firewatch bringing up such a gray area question, I feel like is so good because it really does bring in a perspective of, could we really blame him? Anyway, on day 34, if you steal more than just your supplies, you get in trouble for it. I did it for the footage, and if you do it in your playthroughs, you're just a bad person. Day 64, this is the last of the mid-game montage, and a fire started. Yeah, we weren't that good at our job, I guess. The only real notable part about this night is the fact that Delilah puts the moves on Henry, and throughout Firewatch, you can enable Henry to be more romantic with Delilah, or you can be kind of at an arm's distance of friendship with Delilah. And personally, I never wanted to go down the romantic path, mainly because he's still married. And personally, in my heart, my Henry at least is still loyal. And I'm not saying you're a horrible person if you wanted to get those dialogue options and all that. I'm not trying to argue that. I just personally, at least. And now we're at the end of the mid-game montage. So we are now in the latter half of Firewatch, so let's just jump right into it. This day starts with Henry deciding to go fishing because he's bored, and when he gets to the lake, he sees that there's a little clipboard with fun little things like, oh, his talks with Delilah, and other information that people should not know. And we find out that it is at Wapiti Station, so as Henry is going over, he finds another radio, gets knocked out, wakes up freaking out like any normal person would, and we have some direct confrontation between Henry and this mystery figure. And all we know is that it's at some place called Wapiti Station. But there is no Wapiti Station. There is a Wapiti Meadow, though. So heading up, we see some fences and stuff, and Henry tries to get in. Doesn't go well. And then Delilah remembers, hey, there's some firemen who did a control burn south of wherever you are. Why not go ask them for help? Heading on over there, which takes a while. You get there, there's no one there. But there's an axe you can grab, which would let you get in. And on your way back to Wapiti Station,
let's hear it.
This happens.
You heard someone in the bushes.
Yeah?
Okay, so let's assume we're being tailed. Or you are, at least. Where are you right now?
Just on my way back, in and out of trees in the middle of nowhere.
Do you see anybody?
No, definitely not.
All right, so tell me what you think of this. Did you just cough?
No. Did you just cough?
No.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck.
There isn't any way someone, like, another lookout could be on this line, is there?
No. Not without tapping our radios. Get in your tower, shut the door. Don't leave, and don't use your radio. I'll call you. Understand? I will call you.
This is so awesome. This is just such a good day because what do you mean we finally get this confrontation? And yeah, so that's how day 76 ends. It's a pretty quick day. It's just a lot of traveling, but it's a really good lead into the next day. Day 77 opens with Delilah talking to Henry like everything's normal. But then she has him look at his little floral, whatever, of the Shoshone Valley. And looking and finding the specific one that she references, you head down to the area that has the same name, coincidentally. Finding a cash box that she's like, hey man, here's the code. Opening it gets you a new radio, because your last one was compromised. And at this point, you're able to go to Wapiti Station, but something really cool about this day is, in one of the developer commentaries, they talk about how you can just head straight to Wapiti Station with your previous radio, and then they'll have a conversation with the old radio in mind, which is just really cool, and I love it. Anyway, let's head to Wapiti Station. This area is very technological. It looks like a surveillance camp. There's multiple beds, the setup is very militaristic, and shit's gonna go down. and it's kind of insane. There's this thing called the wave receiver. If you use it, you'll be led to the desk, and under a bunch of pieces of paper, you find some character profiles on Henry and Delilah. And it's kind of crazy how this expands into no longer just some random dude, but this could be an organization. This could be some psyop. It's kind of crazy. Delilah and Henry freak out like anyone else would, and Delilah's like, let's burn the place down. And my Henry, you can agree with her, but my Henry was like, no, that's insane. But on your way out, the place still burns down. So you didn't really have a choice, but anyway, Des 77 pauses, and now you're at it again, but later in the night. Your wave receiver goes on, you follow it, and you find a bag with a key to a cave. You learn about that earlier in the game, but I didn't mention it because I didn't want to. So you grab it, and on your way back, Delilah says, oh, you're back already, you should relax. And Henry responds, I'm not back. And so rushing over, you find no one there, but you find a tape recorder with some headphones, and you listen to it, and it's Delilah saying we should burn the place down. So we might be criminals. Day 78 opens with us having pretty much nothing to go off of, minus the keys to the cave. And so we're going to go splunking. And just for quick context, you discover the cave on your way back on the first day, but I didn't feel like mentioning it because it's not really important until now. Yeah, what do you want from me? Going in, Henry takes 6 steps and then he gets locked in. Great. And as he has to explore and make his way through the cave to find an escape, he finds a little alcove, which we find out is Brian Goodwin's base. Also, something I should have mentioned earlier, there is a previous Firewatch, Ned Goodwin and his son Brian Goodwin. We're not exactly sure when they were there before us. They might have said it. I didn't really pay attention, but they're important now. This little alcove is just Brian Goodwin's nerd cave, essentially, with him having a bunch of D&D copyright-friendly stuff around, and it helps to show the type of character he is. And you find some sinkers, I think they're called. I don't know. Editor me will explain it. You're gonna need them, and there's a little note that talks about how Brian says to the whoever finds it, hey man, sorry, can you return this to this address? I don't want to go cave spelunking because and my dad wants me to, so I'm hiding these. Something thank you. And it goes to show the type of character Brian is, and I think it really does it well. Anyway, now that we have the proper gear, we can splunk deeper into the cave and we find a dead body. Brian's dead body. And this is probably one of the best surprises because we see all this characterization of Brian, and then the next time we see him, he's dead. And it is a lot for Delilah because at one point Brian was waving at planes flying by, and Delilah said it was just Ned. And if she said it was Brian, they probably would have been kicked out, but Brian could have been still alive. And so that weighs really heavily on Delilah. And it brings the new question of what now? We have all these mysteries, and the only lead we had led to a dead body. And I believe in this this day, we find out that Delilah got asked by the police if she knew anything, and she said no, but because this sounds like they have recordings and notes of what they've been talking about, something could happen. Welcome to the final day. There's not much to go on. Pretty much the fire that was been going on has gone to the point where it merged with the Wapiti Station fire, and now it's creating this crazy fire that you have to get evacuated for. And so on your last day, what is there to do? We don't know what happened to the teenagers. Brian Goodwin's dead body is laying in a deep cave, and we might get arrested for starting a fire. And with all that in mind, the wave receiver goes off, and we follow it to a headset. And I'm gonna just play it.
How do you know it's for you?
There's a tracking collar tied to it. Someone was leading me here. And there's another tape.
Yeah, hi, Henry. Hey, you better find this before it burns up. We've been causing each other a lot of headaches. Now I gotta go stake out a site that's as fit for living as the one you're about to find. You'll get it when you see it. You can't blame me for keeping an eye on you. Not after bumping into you back in May. Down by the cave, for croc's sake. I've been up here for 3 years. I kept it cozy. Winters are harsh as hell, and I ran out of books. But I got that antenna rigged up, and Delilah, she's a record you don't gotta flip. I kinda get why Brian took to her. About a week ago, I stopped worrying about you finding anything out, and that's right when everything went shithouse with you two. You guys don't know anything about having kids. All right, nobody knows nothing. It ain't Andy and Opie walking down a lake to fish every afternoon. It ain't Mayberry. But you gotta know I didn't kill him. All right, we were climbing. I was teaching him. Brian was uneducated in the way to do anything. He just fucking didn't sink his anchor the right way. You know, I thought about going back, having to answer questions and having to get him put in the ground, and I didn't see the point. Don't come looking for me. Sorry about your wife.
That was Ned Goodwin, obviously. We can tell by the subtitles. And we get to see the base he lived in while he was, being a hermit. And this is what broke me. This scene broke my love for this game. It felt like a cop-out. It felt like they had this huge, grandiose plan for Firewatch, and they just couldn't do it. And instead of going for it, they used a character that they offhandedly mentioned and made him be a hermit that just wanted to hide out and be forgotten. And at some point, we found out that the teens got arrested because they were doing like drunk joyrides on a tractor. And then Ned also says that he's not going to do anything with the information. And this game, all the loose ends got wrapped up in a nice little bow. And I think that's what makes it so hard for me, because it felt like there was more. It felt like this game should have been longer. It felt like the game needed a quick end. The deadline was coming up and they needed to just finish it. And I think that's what makes this the hardest for me, because I love this game. It's beautiful. It's human. It's so questioning. But the ending was just some random guy. And I love this game. I love the build-up, this dark mystery about surveillance and everything happening, but we just find out it's some random human, some hermits that we don't even know if he killed his son or not, but all we know is he hasn't told anyone. And in some ways, I think it's beautiful that this whole game, we're following this very human character that I don't even know how to explain it. He just, everything he does, the way he climbs, the way he walks, the way he does little step overs, feels so weighted and human that in some ways it makes sense that the end of the game would just be some random guy. And that's why in some ways I love Firewatch. Am I still happy with how Wapiti Station had this huge grandiose scheme? Not at all. I felt that it overplayed a hand it didn't have, or the developers overplayed a hand that they didn't have. And I wish that Wapiti Station wasn't built like that. It felt, I would have loved for something else we could have talked about, but it's what we got. And I don't know if I said everything I need to say about Firewatch, and I really don't, but Firewatch is a flawed game. It's not perfect. And I really don't like how the ending wraps this game up in a neat little bow. It felt messy. It felt like there should have been more. In some ways, I think I wish I could have stayed in this game longer. So you end with hearing that and exploring Ned Goodwin's base. Then needing to evac, you go travel to Delilah's lookout. And at this point, you can talk with her. I'm not going to go into details about it, but it's in some ways a finality, but also a question mark of finality. I don't have much else to say about it than that. And it felt like that felt a good ending. It felt human. It felt like they don't know what they are. They're a situationship, and they've gone through all this stuff. Delilah's regretting Brian Goodwin's death and doesn't know if she should say something or not. What would you say? And the guilt, and Henry's still lost. Henry doesn't know what to do. Delilah mentions going back to his wife. He talks about, or at least my Henry talks about, he's like, I don't know what will happen. I think that's what makes Firewatch so beautiful, because we don't know what will happen. When Henry goes to the helicopter and grabs the safety person's hand, all we know is that he's going to go down, and that's it. We don't know if he's going to go see Julia. We don't know if he's going to meet with Delilah. We don't know anything. That's the game. Firewatch is beautiful. It's beautiful and wonderful, and I love it, but it pisses me off with how you have this build-up. Ned Goodwin just kind of comes out of nowhere. Wapiti Station feels like this huge plan that got canceled, and it felt like they just did too much. And even in the developer commentary, they mention, we don't know if this was too much or not. And Brian Goodwin, it felt like there wasn't enough time. And there's so many more random issues I could say now that I'm less of talking about it, more so just talking about how I feel. This game is beautiful, but it pisses me off because I feel like there could have been a different ending. But this game feels human. The ending feels human. The characters feel human, and I can't blame it. So as Henry grabs the hand to the helicopter man, that's Firewatch. Or in the footage you're seeing, we see that he's grabbing a cassette tape and the helicopter's flying away. Yeah, the developer commentary has jokes. Thank you for watching. This game, I feel like I couldn't do it in the normal fashion how I normally do of pretending I'm funny. And so I kind of wanted to do a little more down to earth, and hopefully I could convey that well. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you around.